Alright, so what we're doing here is listening for a noise there in the distance. It's like a low frequency pounding. So the only info I've got for this video is that it was in Italy on the 6th of September 2023 at 9 past 10. And it says here, I live in a small town. This is a video recorded during the night just before bed. The sound will stop for a while, then start again, sometimes louder and sometimes more distant. And it's got that, to me it sounds a little bit like construction. I mean, it's hard to know because, is there a quarry around there? And in Italy, are they allowed to do construction or explosives in a quarry or a mine or something like that at 10 o'clock in the evening? Most places won't allow that. And of course the other thing too is, to her it seems like it's getting closer and further away, so what's going on there? It sounds a funny thing. It can bounce off all sorts of stuff and play with your head a little bit, but she seems, to her this is something totally unusual. So I always like these anomalous sounds, the trumpets and all of that sort of stuff, even though in my opinion the trumpets sound like construction. They sound like a bulldozer or what are they called? Those things dragging along a rocky base, and it makes that squealing sound. But anyway, welcome to From the Fringe. My name's Chris, and I'm back finally after that massive long hiatus. I'm pretty sure it's been close to a year since I've sort of done one of these types of videos. This year in 2023 I've released I think a grand total of 3 videos. So I've got really slack this year. It's just work, a little bit of burnout as well. But I'm back and I'm keen, and let's get into it. First of all, I want to talk about this guy, Jaime Muson. I'm sure you've all heard about the dolls, I'll call them, the aliens. It's been all over the news, so I know you're sick of hearing it, but I'm just going to add my opinion. I'll be brief on this. Okay, so as everybody is well aware, Jaime Muson recently presented some alien bodies to the Mexican Congress in a congressional hearing which he broadcast live on his YouTube channel. One thing I found interesting was there was a couple of names that stood out besides Jaime. On the panel, Avi Loeb showed up. Well, he wasn't actually in-house, he was via a video link. And, he put his case forward for why the UFO phenomenon should be taken seriously. And also there was this fellow Ryan Graves, who I'll admit I don't know a lot about, but I think he's an ex-Navy pilot, and he has witnessed UAPs, and he's trying to raise the profile as well. He talks about the secrecy surrounding UAPs, but he says it's commonly witnessed by pilots, these UAPs. So hopefully this whole thing hasn't tainted Avi Loeb's... Did I say Loeb before? I keep calling him Loeb. Avi Loeb and Ryan Graves' reputation. I hope that they'll still be taken seriously. So let's have a look at these aliens. Right, so Jaime Muson claims that these aliens were found in a diatom mine and were fossilized there. And so I've got to ask the question, how did these aliens end up in a diatom deposit which has to be many millions of years old? And so also, one of there's a lot that turns me off these so-called aliens, But one of the main things is just the position that they fossilized in, apparently. It's just so unnatural. Like, when things die, they slump. They go limp. You know, these things are rigid in this weird position like this, with their heads back. And they're both in exactly the same position. So to me, it looks like a model, and it is. And sickeningly, or bizarrely, it's a model that's made of actual human and probably animal bones. So they've somehow stitched these bones together to form a roughly, I was going to say realistic organic shape, but it doesn't look real. Like, when you look at these x-rays, I mean, have a look at this. I don't claim to be an expert on anatomy, but even I can see that it just looks wrong. It's all out of whack. I just wanted to mention something about, where is it? This one. How they talk about this upside down human femur. So it'd have to be a baby's femur. Oh, is that the one that I want to look at? Hang on a second. So this upside down human femur, which is a thigh bone, as you can see there, over here on the left arm, and you say, well, it's a different shape, but it's not, because what they've done down the bottom here is just shaved off the pointy bits, and the other arm looks totally different. And again, I'm no expert, but even I can see that it's been cut off or snapped off there at the end, down the bottom. Just one more thing I forgot to mention, the skulls of these little alien dolls. I read somewhere along the way that these skulls are most likely the brain case for or from a llama. That's a llama. And as you can see here, this portion of the llama's skull anatomy very much does look like one of these alien heads. Okay, that's all. Okay, so some orbs caught on film.
Alright, let me back up a bit. That is 1, 2, 3.
You can see there's a lightning storm going on.
Counted at least 10 times before I started recording this. This is...
And you can see there the orbs flashing about there in between the clouds. Also take note that there's a lot of environmental light around there. Street lights and vehicles and porch lights and all of that sort of thing. Now have a look at this second video.
I caught the orb on camera. I caught it on camera, the fucking orb. I can't stop. It's right here. It's right now. Look at my camera right now.
And you can see some more orbs buzzing around there.
Oh, just look for the little dots right here.
But you'll notice what he says here.
I wouldn't see it on this contrast, but I saw it on this contrast.
So he can only see these orbs through his viewfinder on his phone. He can't see them with his eyes. And he can only see them with a certain setting on his phone. So clearly this has to be lens flare. Let's have a look at the next video. So it looks like a bike that's come loose and is just rolling down a slight decline. But it's going so slow. I mean, it's very hard to balance a bike going that slow. People have suggested that maybe it's the video has been slowed down, and so it's actually rolled faster and they've just put it in slow motion. Possible. In my opinion, I tend to regard any ghost videos where there's a rolling object. I'm a little bit suspicious generally because it just looks like it's rolling down a hill. It's explainable. And so let's go with the down to earth explanation before we start talking about some ghost that's just slowly pushing a bike to the gutter and then dropping it. Alright, so the next one is... You'll see. What's this strange looking thing? It looks like bubbles. It looks like soapy bubbles, doesn't it? But the strange thing about it is that this was photographed on Crowder's Mountain in North Carolina, I believe. And you can see on the map here, it's in a pretty remote location. So, my first thought was it's some sort of industrial waste. But there's no industry around here. It's in the middle of nowhere. And it's up high too. He's up on Crowder's Mountain, just off the ridgeline, just off the top. And so this thing's floated all the way up there. Well, that's very unusual. It's not the first time I've seen these sort of things either. I remember seeing a video, which I'll play now. It's very old. Good old potato cam. And yeah, have a look here. He's game touching that. Imagine if it just consumed him and then dissolved him. So yeah, there's that one, which is, again, I'm thinking industrial waste. Also another one, which is fairly well known from Morocco, which is huge, like a huge amount of waste if it is. I don't know what it is, but man, look at all of that. It's everywhere. And he feels, brave enough to touch it as well. Then I'm thinking maybe it's sea foam. We'll have a look here. Here's some. This is sea foam in Australia. It's crazy, isn't it? That's actually not too far from where I live, Maroochydore. The madness. But it's got the same sort of consistency there. Kind of like cotton candy. So I feel we're getting closer to identifying what this thing might be. So I'll just quickly read what I found out about sea foam. Sea foam is created when waves or strong winds inject air into the dissolved organic matter in ocean water. The organic matter, mostly made of dead microscopic plants, contains a protein that gives the water enough surface tension to form bubbles. Well, this photo here, or this series of photos, is nowhere near the ocean. So I was thinking, can this be done with fresh water? The same sort of process. And sure enough, yeah, it can. I've got a little bit of footage here from India, I believe. And this is from a freshwater lake. But the cause of it is it's toxic waste. And you can see the consistency of the bubbles is a little bit different. This looks more like bath bubbles, detergent bubbles to me, and it just acts differently. And so these photos here, there's no industry and there's no ocean nearby. But I bet you there is streams. And it's the same sort of mechanism. Well, I mean, water's water. Sure, there's salt in salt water. I don't know if that has any effect, but there's definitely organic material in a freshwater stream. And so I reckon what's happened here is the same process as what happens with waves in the right conditions. There's a stream, there's maybe it's either getting churned up or there could be a bit of a waterfall. And just with the right conditions, the organic material in the water, it's actually foaming up the water and getting lifted up by the wind currents. And that's what this guy's seen. Okay, let's wrap this up with a true ghost story. When I was 19, I started dating my partner. He had a mostly separate living area in his mum's house that I eventually began to crash at almost every night. I was a tattoo apprentice and I didn't make any consistent money yet, and it was nice to have a reliable couch to surf on. Bed actually, but you get it. His mum wasn't a big fan, so I got good at keeping a pretty low profile while I was there. Usually this wasn't an issue, except for the fact that there was only one bathroom in the entire house. While my partner's space was on the bottom floor, the bathroom was on the third floor, right in between his mum and his little sister's room. Since I worked such late hours, it wasn't unusual for us not to go to bed until 2 or 3 in the morning. So on this night, when I realised I had to pee before we went to sleep, I wasn't too worried because everybody else would be well asleep by then. After going up his painfully creaky stairs, crossing through the kitchen and the living room, I started up the stairs towards the bathroom. I was tired, so I had my head down, staring at my feet as I went, until I suddenly felt cold. It wasn't just a gust from an AC vent. It was like I walked into a freezer. I looked around, trying to find where this was coming from, but it wasn't until I went up another few stairs that I saw something strange. At the top of the stairs, there was a little girl sitting cross-legged in the dark, with her back pressed into the corner. She had long, black hair that fell over her face, which immediately made me think that this was my partner's little sister, who at the time had the same type of hair. I quietly said her name, thinking maybe she was sick or sleepwalking, but she still didn't move or look up, even when I crouched in front of her. I looked over my shoulder through the open door into their mum's room, and I saw her sleeping on the bed there. Then I looked through the door down the hall, which is his sister's room, and what I saw on the bed wasn't just a shape under the covers. It was clearly his sister. I could see her hand hanging over the edge of the bed, and the half of her face that wasn't buried in her pillow. I quickly turned back to look at the girl sitting on the floor in front of me, and she was still very much there. I popped up like a jack-in-the-box, and went back down the stairs to grab my partner, but about halfway down, I felt that cold feeling slip off me like a blanket that was being pulled away. I turned and the girl was gone. There was still no way I was going back up those stairs though. Looking back, I realised now that my decision to walk to the gas station alone and in the middle of the night just to use the gas station bathroom was much more dangerous than whatever was sitting in the hallway there, but it definitely didn't feel that way at the time. The next morning, I began to tell my partner about what happened, but as soon as I got to the point of my story where I felt the cold on the stairs, he looks at me with a serious face and says, "Then you saw a little girl at the top of the stairs?" How's that for a creepy story? There's none of this shadows in the corner of the eyes or anything like that. She actually squatted down in front of this ghost. It's terrifying. It's like a horror movie. And I always like and find interesting the cold snap that happens every time something paranormal occurs. It's very common, isn't it? We hear that all the time about all sorts of paranormal stuff. But anyway, that's all I've got for you today. It's good to be back, and I will see you guys next video, which won't be too long, I promise. See ya.